Morohone, and I'm the President and CEO of Capital Analytics. Welcome to the launch of our 5th edition of Invest Greater Fort Lauderdale, an in-depth analysis of what makes the region tick, where the opportunities are, and what challenges lie ahead. Thank you everyone for being here today. Today is exciting for a number of reasons besides celebrating our 5th anniversary milestone. For the first time in 2 years, we are gathering in person. This is our first live event since the pandemic began, and I, for one, feel a great sense of appreciation for each and every one of you being here. There's a special connection that happens when people are together, and I believe we all know that now more than ever. In coming together, it feels as though a new era is beginning, one where COVID exists in the background and does not rule our present or our future. It is also the perfect opportunity to reflect where we've been over the past couple years. For Greater Fort Lauderdale, the steps taken in the recent past are beginning to pay off and bear many fruits. The regional economy is flying high with unemployment below even pre-pandemic levels at 2.5% in April, beating the national average of 3.6%. Greater Fort Lauderdale is now coming into its own as a diverse metropolis. It is making noise as a tech hub. In fact, Brookings has named Greater Fort Lauderdale among tech's rising stars, and West Broward is #1 in the state for VC-backed jobs. But it's not just tech. Aviation and aerospace, the financial sector, life sciences, and the marine industry also color the character of the region's diversifying landscape. People and businesses are taking notice too, as the region is among the leaders in net population inflows. With all this growth, of course, come challenges. We all know very clearly that diversity, equity, and inclusion are integral components for any company or organization, and many are moving to ensure that they're inside the issue rather than on the outside looking in. Our first panel today will tackle this issue head on, discussing how the region can work to ensure everyone's participation in growth that is happening here, creating an equitable future for all. Another challenge is infrastructure and housing, and as more people and businesses are moving here. Our second panel will look at what the future holds for real estate development and infrastructure, particularly at this junction that has been dominated by talk of inflation, higher interest rates, supply chain challenges, and workforce needs. Overall, however, when we look at the picture of Greater Fort Lauderdale, what we see is a great deal of optimism. At this time of change, as we now are mostly accustomed to living with COVID, it's particularly important to look ahead, leaning on the lessons learned over the past couple years. At Capital Analytics, like so many other businesses, we saw the pandemic as an opportunity to change things up, whether business intelligence is now more vital than ever, whether it's in print, digital, or conferences like these. First, we expanded our talented team at Capital Analytics, and we have entered into 11 new markets to include Pittsburgh, Nashville, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Raleigh-Durham, San Antonio, Dallas-Fort Worth, Jacksonville, Cincinnati, and North and Central Jersey, bringing our economic reporting library to just under 20 metro areas. I think 5 years ago when we were doing the first launch conference for Invest Greater Fort Lauderdale, that number was more like 3 or 4. So we've had immense growth over the past number of years. Next, our Invest Insights video platform has exploded. We brought our network of high-level CEOs in front of the camera to share with our audience their views and advice on everything from creativity in light of the pandemic to cryptocurrency and NFT's long-term effects on banking norms, the Great Resignation in retaining and attracting talent, and so much more. We expanded that video platform to a podcast so that our readers and viewers can take us on the go. In all our discussions with hundreds of businesses and political leaders over the past years, a common thread is how far we've come in such a short amount of time, how advances that were expected to take years are now taking months. Today, Greater Fort Lauderdale stands as a leading example of what it takes to not only grow stronger, but grow better. We have quite a lineup for you today. However, before our discussions begin, I'd like to take a moment to thank today's sponsors. Our gold sponsors, Hypower and Pediatric Associates, and our honored sponsors, Broward Workshop, the City of Fort Lauderdale, the Riverside Hotel, and the Broward and Miami Association of Realtors. Thank you. It is with your support that we can continue to bring high-level speakers and content to Broward County. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our opening keynote, Juliet Roulhac, the chair of the Broward Workshop and the director of corporate philanthropy and community engagement for FPL. Please help me welcome Juliet to the stage.
Thank Thank you, Abby, and congratulations to both you and Invest for the remarkable job that you've been doing, and certainly for all that you're doing for the County of Broward, and really showcasing what we are doing here in Broward and helping to build and promote our county. Yeah, I remember when Invest first launched, and it's quite remarkable what you've done in the 5 years to really distinguish yourself in the market. And I do believe that you bring something unique to us because you have really in this product shown exactly what we are doing all across Broward. So I am thrilled to be here with all of you this morning because I live in Broward, I work in Broward, I play in Broward, and I plan to stay in Broward. And because of that, I am fully entrenched and engaged in Broward and all that is happening here. So Broward, of course, is the jewel in our state. We're the second largest county in the beautiful state of Florida, where most yearn to live or at least visit. We're the most diverse county in Florida and one of the most diverse in the nation in terms of race and ethnicity. We have award-winning economic engines such as the International Airport, our seaport, and our cultural centers. We often lead the state in the lowest unemployment rate, currently at 2.8%. We were the first county in the state to activate 6 pillars, which is now Prosperity Partnership, and have advanced to an 11-pillar collaborative effort to advance economic development and quality of life for everyone in our county. We have an ecosystem where government, business, agency, and community work together for the common good. You know, I've always observed that every great success story has its challenges, and that every challenge presents an opportunity. And Broward is no different. We have our current successes and we have our challenges. A current challenge that we have is that we're #1 in being the least affordable place to live in the United States. And we do not have a highly developed mass transit system for those who live miles away from where they work. It is this incredible mix of opportunities and challenges I and most of our business community are inspired by to engage and invest in building a greater Broward County. My passion for Broward emerged as I've learned more about our county, and I've engaged by serving on several civic, professional, and community boards whose sole purpose is to improve Broward. The Broward Workshop, for example, Business Leaders Activating, the Community Foundation of Broward, philanthropy-driven program support, and the Prosperity Partnership, business and community leadership for economic prosperity. I will speak to you through the multiple lenses through which I see our county. Today we have the advantage of knowing about disparities in our communities, which brings a unique opportunity and obligation to ensure that our diverse community is a place where every person can access the very best of Broward. The amazing quilt that is Broward, from Fort Lauderdale to Miramar, to Pompano Beach to West Park, from the seagrass to the sawgrass. The thread of diversity, equity, and inclusion is intricately sewn and must be inextricably intertwined as we create this quilt together. There are 5 areas that rise to the top as priorities across different organizations. We see workforce housing, transportation, resiliency, workforce training, and of course, diversity and inclusion. The county, of course, is to be acknowledged for its very thoughtful response to what has been described as a housing catastrophe. Broward has prioritized affordable workforce housing by investing $48 million this year in gap funding allocation for affordable housing. The County Commission listened to a community coalition of nonprofit, government, business, and various agencies, coordinated by the Broward Workshop, who advocated for the establishment of the Broward County Affordable Housing Trust Fund. This will result in more than 1,000 units and projects across most of our county, supporting nearly 2,500 low-wage residents, including about 300 seniors. The business community is also becoming increasingly aware that our shortage of affordable housing has a host of negative effects on our employees, including stress related to food security, healthcare, retirement, ability to live in the communities where they work, and overall quality of life. Another critical element for all of us is transportation. The county continues to roll out its transit and transportation plan funded by the penny sales tax that passed in 2018, and is considering alternatives for the new river crossing in downtown Fort Lauderdale, a project which will support growth of hybrid transportation hubs and systems and eventually allow for commuter rail on this FEC corridor system. The Broward Workshop hosted a Stakeholder Summit to bring all of the relevant voices together, including FDOT, the City of Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, the Broward MPO, and various national consultants in the Marine Association as well, to discuss the pros and cons, funding options, concerns, and challenges of this endeavor. Right now, the climate is perfect for us to push hard for infrastructure funding and to see because the most value we can see in providing transportation across 3 counties is really relevant to this region. And it's very important for companies relocating here to be able to connect across the region. Thirdly, our county is a leader in resilience and has strong advocates in the workshop's Community Resilience Committee, the Southeast Climate Change Compact, and the Southeast Florida Climate Change Compact and other community organizations and agencies on meeting evolving regional needs, including strengthening the blue economy and coral reef restoration through public and private partnerships, to name a few. Fourth is the workforce training and certification. Our top 10 in the country, award-winning Broward College, is a national leader in innovative programs to support workforce training with a specific focus on underserved communities where the communities are underemployed and the unemployment rate is significantly higher than the county or state with its Broward Up program. The Federal Reserve Bank, as well as many other state colleges, are looking to Broward College's Broward Up program as a national model. The potential positive economic impact, coupled with the focus on increasing opportunity and access to minority communities, make it compelling. The number and diversity of partnerships that makes this all possible is, of course, also key to the success of this initiative. And finally, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is certainly not a standalone or vertical effort, as I mentioned before. This county has assumed its role and embraced its responsibility to lead this effort. From the county's Race Equity Task Force, which is comprised of more than 20 industry, business, nonprofit, civic appointed and volunteer members, to the Community Foundation of Broward and Children's Services Council, serving as a host to educational opportunities and inclusion to better understand bias, racism, and the proliferation of diversity and inclusion efforts across our businesses, nonprofit, and agency sectors. It is clear that there is much work to do, but there is clearly also a will to do it. Broward County's future is bright, and I'm proud to work alongside so many others like you to assure that it is. I appreciate you providing me an opportunity to share with you some very real challenges we are facing here in Broward County and how many parts of our community have joined forces to thoughtfully and strategically embrace those challenges and to work collectively on solutions. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the program. Congratulations and best. Certainly. Oh, there you go. Okay.
I have our first copy of the report that will be available for everyone at the end of the event.
Very exciting.
Well, thank you again, Juliet. If everyone could give her another round of applause. Thank you very much. And now I would like to invite up the moderator and the panelists for our first panel, Doing Work, Broward's Leaders on Creating a More Equitable Future. Leading the discussion, we have Tarlisha Williams-Smith, the Assistant City Manager and Director of Human Resources at the City of Fort Lauderdale. Unfortunately, Brian Jackson's flight was canceled, so he was unable to meet us today, so he will be with us in spirit. But we also have Shahiwa Jarrett Gellin, the President of Broward County Black Chamber of Commerce, Michelle Gomez, the Mayor of the City of Tamarack, and Bob Swindell, the President and CEO of the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance. Please welcome the panelists and moderator to the stage.
Okay. If I sit, my knee might lock up. I know you all heard that. Oversharing about my torn meniscus. I have on a brace. That's why I have on, slacks. Good morning again, everyone. How's everybody doing today? Good. Congratulations again, Invest, and it's always wonderful to come behind the wonderful Juliet Roulhac. Okay, so Ms. Shahiwa, we'll start with you. Access to capital is cited as one of the most critical aspects in developing the Black and minority business communities. Your chamber has been, you gotta be kidding me. City of Fort Lauderdale never sleeps. Start again, I apologize. Access to capital is cited as one of the most critical aspects in developing the Black and minority business communities. Your chamber has been at the forefront of both providing grants to and educating these business communities about the resources available to them. Outside of your efforts, what are some of the creative programs, partnerships, and/or ways that the county can continue to improve upon providing the access to capital?
Thank you, Tarlisha, for the question, and thank you, Invest, for having me here. Well, first, you have to start at the base, as we live in the reality that requires, creative ways to get capital to Black and minority businesses. So when you control for socioeconomic status, credit, et cetera, Black and brown businesses aren't getting the loans at the same rate that everyone else is. So as a chamber, I have to bring those solutions. I have to go out in the market to see how I can bring and connect my businesses to that capital. And so, yes, we did offer grants through the pandemic and partnered with Fiserv to deliver over $500,000 in grants to Black and brown businesses here in the county during a very critical time in which the PPP funds were not flowing to our small businesses. And there was a lot of fear and fright around whether they would be able to survive. So that was one way, reaching out and partnering with corporations and others so that they understand the need for these businesses to survive. They understand the impact and import of these businesses in our communities and creating jobs and really building wealth in areas that people don't normally think about. But when you start talking about those statistics and the importance of these small businesses, some organizations rise to the occasion and say, well, how can we help? And we want to make sure we're helping in that particular community. But you'll also find that people will make a way when there seems to be no way. And so we've gotten very creative in that there are funders out there creating new funds that specifically want to make sure that Black and brown startups and other companies have that startup capital. So you have funds like Fearless Fund, Diverse City Funding, Harlem Capital, where they're saying there is a dearth. There's no capital flowing into these communities and into the coffers of these small businesses. So let us go out, raise funds, and then seek to make sure we're infusing that capital in these small businesses so that they can create the jobs that we also want in our communities. And lastly, I'll say, as a chamber, Our chamber is not very traditional and can't be because of the needs of our small business owners. So we're looking at ways that we can also partner with some individuals and we can have a fund ourselves. So that our businesses are never caught off guard, that they have a place to go when, for instance, some of the large banks weren't responsive to our members because of the overwhelming response. They got lost, and they were scared. And so it behooves us as a chamber to make sure that doesn't happen again. So we're looking to do some things differently so that we can be that base of capital for our small businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving right along, Mayor Gomez. With the ever-increasing investment into Broward County, there has been continuous economic growth and development. While this is primarily a positive, it can also lead to longtime residents being priced out of their neighborhoods. As a public official, how can a better balance be struck between encouraging economic growth and development while still maintaining a standard of affordability?
Good morning and thank you. And actually, thank you everybody for being here. It's nice to be in person again and see so many familiar faces. It's a very difficult question that's been asked. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just how do we get to a pathway? Everybody who is investing in the community which they live, the goal is to make it better. Everybody wants their investment to thrive. And so when we make it thrive, unfortunately, we have the alternative of where sometimes people are not able to afford the homes that are there. So we are very fortunate in our city. We have an affordable housing stock. We continue to do what we can to keep it affordable, but also we are intentional in our planning, and we receive funds from the state and we receive funds from the federal government in order to help our residents. So knowing that things like inflation have come up for repairs and that the products are not there at the same level, the prices are minor home repair program that we have, we've increased the amounts. We've also increased the quantifiers, the AMI, the values of which our residents are applying for these loans or these grant programs from the state and federal government. So we have the first-time home buyer program. We have the minor repair home program. We have just also added something that'll be rolling out this July for roof replacement, because we have a lot of people who are having their insurances cut because their roofs are not 100% in which the lender wants the roofs to be. So in order to be able to not have forced place insurance be put on these homes, which make it more and more unaffordable, we're working to be able to help our residents through that as well. We also have various other programs where we have through our social services programs in our city to be able to try to help people. And then we're also very fortunate to partner with the Area and Aging Disability Resource Center and other organizations in the county to be able to help our residents where we may not be able to do so. We also have programs. We're very proud to partner up with Broward College and the Broward Up program, because we are, I say we're not my grandparents' Tamarack. I've had the pleasure of coming down to Tamarack since the 70s. We're not going to do age right now. And but I've lived there. It'll be July 4th, 28 years. And we are a minority majority community. Our average age is 49, not 99, as some may still think. And our population has now grown to almost 72,000 people. So I know that there's some realtors in the room and investors, and I say, come visit Tamarack if you haven't been there in a while. And see what we're doing to encourage growth, but also encourage our population to receive the education and certification credits that they need in order to get the workforce skills that they need and be able to get a better job. We've had the pleasure of working with the Alliance and bringing Amazon. Thank you very much for your help. And we now have a brand new business in our city that is hit the ground running with a same-day delivery service. We are a unique hub for them that they're going to be using as a role model for other places. And we have 500 people being employed there, the minimum starting salary or hourly at $20 an hour, full-time benefits, and all the good stuff that people are looking for, especially in this day and age. And we're very proud to support that and continue working to be able to go through our procurement department and give what we can to our minority business owners, veterans, females, and just keep the options open for everybody to have the say, drive, and input into our economic development, because economic development is needed. If we don't develop and we don't do it in a smart manner, we're all built out. We have to do smart planning, and some of the decisions we have to make are uncomfortable. But you've got to listen to everybody and figure out the best way. And driving here, we've seen others, I've drove through other cities, I see them going vertical. It's not comfortable for some, but there are challenges before us. And in order to accommodate more housing for people who are working in our city, in order to accommodate growth and vibrancy, there are certain decisions that the city has to make with intentional planning to help our residents and bring in new businesses.
We heard Mayor Gomez and all of the intentional things that the city of Tamarack is doing, and also from Ms. Gallen about being deliberate in the decisions that you're making to make sure that everybody has an opportunity and access. That's very important. So moving forward with Mr. Swindell, as the primary economic development organization for Broward County, how would you advise businesses who are looking to foster and nurture a business environment and culture that is diverse and inclusive in an organic and thoughtful way?
Well, thank you for the question, and thank you all for being here this morning, and my thanks to Invest for the work they've done over the last several years. I think first you've got to start with that your community places a high value on economic mobility, diversity, and inclusion. Individual businesses is important, and I'll talk about some of those initiatives in a moment. But Juliet Roulhac touched on this. She's one of our co-chairs for an initiative we're calling Prosperity Partnership, and she's leading it with Tony Coley with Truist Bank and Kathleen Cannon with United Way. And the focus is a community-wide economic planning initiative. It's not an alliance plan. We are just sort of our Alliance Foundation is the organizer and the keeper of the information, but it's not a specific alliance plan. It's really designed to be community-wide. And why that's important, one of the 11 pillars that Juliet touched on is economic mobility, and we're calling it Prosperity Broward. And we started doing this before the pandemic, so it's not because it's the flavor of the week and something we thought was important because people started talking about the issue. We realized a long time ago that we needed to be able to focus on key areas of Broward County that weren't enjoying the prosperity that we were seeing in other parts of our county. So we asked an independent consultant that was doing a skills gap analysis for us to identify the 6 most distressed zip codes in Broward County. And we weren't sure what we were going to do with that information, but we knew it was important because we needed to dial in specifically on these areas. Our role as an economic development organization, as probably everyone in this room knows, is to build a business brand for Broward and to help companies choose and pick a location in Broward County. But part of what companies will look at when they compare a community, and typically it's a competitive process, they also want to know about the values of the community. What's the corporate fabric like? What's the social safety net like? What do you prioritize as a community? And we felt that Prosperity Broward, was ahead of the curve in looking at that. So those 6 zip codes include 12 cities, and the cities were very willing to step up, as Mayor Gomez said, with the city of Tamarack. One of the zip codes includes Tamarack. But the idea was, how do we do a better job of career pathing and economic mobility for people that live in these zip codes? Here's a startling fact. I was amazed. I was talking to Mark Wilson, who's the president of the Florida Chamber of Commerce, and he asked me about our 33311 zip code. I'm like, how does the president of the Florida Chamber know about a Broward County zip code? He said, Bob, there are more children in poverty in that zip code than any other zip code in the state of Florida. Now, percentage-wise, there's other counties there are other zip codes that have a higher percentage, but by sheer number. Now that was, when Mark and I were at dinner and he shared that with me, I'm like, and that's one of our obviously targeted zip codes. But, through the work of the Florida Chamber, we've been developing, a series of tactics and how we go into these communities and work with things like we have a focus group that's made up of single parents and talking to them about how they pursue getting a new job and a new career and what that process is like. And then we reached out to Greg Hale, who's one of our co-chairs of Prosperity Broward, and said, with Broward Up and the commitment that the college has to bring training and career certification to the community, instead of having to go to a Broward College campus, they're going to bring the faculty to the cities and to the zip codes. How do we build on that? And Newton Sannon is one of our other co-chairs for that initiative, and he leads OIC, which helps people transitioning out of incarceration. But again, great training programs and definitely knowledgeable about this issue. So we've got some of the best people involved with this and working with our team. We have a dedicated team member from our foundation who focuses exclusively on this issue. and Tracy's been leading it for a while. But again, we make it a priority as a community. Now, what's interesting is we got some external validation. So the Federal Reserve branch in Atlanta caught wind of what we were doing. And some of you have met Dave Altig. He's a senior vice president and one of the lead economists with the Federal Reserve branch in Atlanta. He's spoken to the Broward Workshop numerous occasions. Incredibly bright guy. He's been down to our office a few times over the last 18 months, working with us on this specific project. And the Federal Reserve has got folks that are helping us with data and measuring the impact that we're having through Prosperity Broward. But Dave Altig would tell you that, and so would Raphael Bostic, the president of the Federal Reserve branch in Atlanta, that what Broward County is doing could be a best practice for the country, and that's why they're engaged. They think that what we're doing is so important and unique that other communities, and we are all about open source. We will share what we're doing and the process we're going through, and it's the same with the Florida Chamber if we want to share this with other counties in Florida. So I think if your community makes it a priority, then businesses will respond. And the last thing I'll talk about is we do have a diversity and inclusion pillar as part of Prosperity Broward as well, our Prosperity Partnership. And we're doing a survey of businesses in conjunction with the Broward Workshop, our chambers and others, to understand what individual businesses are doing on diversity and inclusion. And it's just to measure what, do they have programs? If they don't, do they want to have programs? I think that's part of we need to just understand what the baseline is in Broward to really have an impact on this issue. Thanks.
Excellent. A shameless plug for the city of Fort Lauderdale and Prosperity. We are hiring. We are always hiring, and I'm always recruiting. So if there are any other HR directors in here and the mayor for Tamarack, we're just letting everybody know we're available and we're ready to take them on. Okay. Well, thank you all for the contributions that you made today. I mean, it sounds like there's a very serious focus and intentional direction towards diversity, equity, and inclusion, and assisting Broward moving forward with Invest. So thank you. And with that, Abby, I guess we will transition to the next panel.
My papers are on there.
I grabbed yours too. You put it on top of
Yeah,
mine?
my stuff is here, sorry. Go ahead.
Next time, right?
I don't know what happened. Thank you again to our first panel. If we can give another big round of applause. So good morning, everyone. My name is Max Crampton Thomas. I'm the regional editor for our South-based publications. It's a pleasure to be with you here all today. Before I introduce our panel presenter, I wanted to make a couple of quick notes. So you will all see on your table, there are these postcards. On the back of these postcards, and I had one on me, but I must have dropped it on my trip over here, there is a QR code. That QR code, if you scan it, gives you full access to our entire catalog of books, complimentary, so please feel free to register. Also gives you access, starting today, to Invest Greater Fort Lauderdale 2022. So please feel free to take advantage of that. Also, wanted to make a quick note that we do have a hashtag happening today. We are sharing pictures and quotes live, so make sure you follow our accounts on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. We're all over the place. So you can share them with your followers. We're using hashtag GFL or hashtag InvestGFL22. So I want to give another big thank you, of course, to our first panel. It's really encouraging to hear all that's being done in the county to create a more equitable future. It is now my pleasure to introduce the panel presenter for our next panel, Ms. Jenny Morohone, President and CEO of the Fort Lauderdale Downtown Development Authority. Jenny, if you'll please join me on stage.
Thank you, Max, and welcome everybody to downtown Fort Lauderdale. It is such a pleasure to be here after 2 years. Abby, congratulations. What an event. What a wonderful expansion for your program. You know, downtown Fort Lauderdale is truly a success story. And for many of us, we have been able to experience this firsthand. We have seen the growth, the evolution of an urban core flourish in 2 decades. Longer than, you know, it has taken many cities generations, centuries to see the type of growth and progress that we've experienced here. We are not without challenges and obstacles, but nonetheless, the collaboration and commitment that leaders like all of you are taking to address those issues are helping Fort Lauderdale and the urban core of Broward County thrive. The pandemic has certainly fueled positive trends that we have seen in downtown. We have seen growth patterns over the past 2 years in terms of the number of residents that are moving to the urban core increased by almost 20%. And what that's done is not only allow for higher wage jobs to be attracted to the downtown core, but it helped keep our retail and our restaurants open during the pandemic because we had that critical mass of people walking the streets, choosing to shop at our businesses. What we have experienced almost 17% higher return to work, return to office points than the national average, which has allowed us to outpace our peer cities like Nashville, Atlanta, and Austin. And that growth and that potential downtown is only, as you're going to hear, on the horizon growing. In the next 10 years, there's more than 20 development projects slated in downtown, approximately 13,000 more residential units. We have about 1 million square feet of office, which is needed in an urban core that has about 55% residential development in real estate. We have another 1,000 hotel rooms. The attraction of downtown as a tourist destination has also allowed us to thrive in the past several years. And now the rush of private investment that we have seen in the past decade is finally being complemented with public investment in our parks, in our streets, in our transportation systems. And that is thoroughly needed to keep Fort Lauderdale, the urban core, and Broward County evolving as a wonderful metropolitan destination. At the DDA, we are very proud to work on important policies that address housing affordability. We know that density, while not a silver bullet, is a key effort to improving the affordability in our community by providing more residential units, more options for people to live and work in a compact area. And with downtown Fort Lauderdale being a $30 billion economic impact engine in our community, we need to keep that momentum of growth and investment from the private sector and the public sector flowing. So on behalf of the Fort Lauderdale Downtown Development Authority, we're so pleased to be part of Invest Greater Fort Lauderdale, to work with our partners throughout the county, and to keep Fort Lauderdale a city on the rise. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Jenny, quick picture, sorry. Awesome. Another round of applause for Jenny, please. And now it is my pleasure to welcome the panelists for our next panel. If I can be please joined on stage by Danielle Claremont, the Chief of Broward and Palm Beach Operations of the Miami Association of Realtors, Brian Suddeth, the President of Miller Construction Company, and Glenn Wiltshire, the Deputy Port Director for Port Everglades. Well, good morning. Before we begin, I just wanted to say a quick word. It is a pleasure to be with you all today and to moderate this panel of world-class leaders in real estate development, construction, logistics, and infrastructure. In the course of the last year, we have seen the median listing home price in the county rise over 20% due to the increased demand from continued immigration into the county. We've also witnessed a construction industry that has seen historic demand, but has also been challenged daily by inflation and global supply chain issues. And with the national focus on infrastructure at an all-time high due to President Biden's passing of the $1.2 trillion federal infrastructure bill late last year, the conversation we are having today is one of incredible relevance and importance to the future of Broward County. To discuss what's on the horizon, I am joined by an incredibly talented panel. So let's go ahead and jump right into the conversation. So this question is for everyone. We'll go ahead, we'll start with you, Brian. What kinds of projects or business activities are currently keeping your organization busy during this point in the economic cycle, and how does this reflect or highlight Broward County's strength and opportunity?
Well, thank you, Max. As it relates to commercial construction, there's really two gyms in the market right now. It's been multifamily, which Jenny talked about. You walk outside the doors in downtown Fort Lauderdale, it's incredible, and it's all throughout Broward County. The other really large gym in the marketplace has been industrial and e-commerce. And that is really what our company has tried to focus on more than the multifamily for a few reasons, and it just fits our firm better. But as it relates to e-commerce, it is amazing how many millions of square feet have recently been built or is going to be built, and there's hardly any vacancy. And that's all strived, from really, I think the pandemic, accelerated that, and with online shopping. Amazon today, I think, is the largest retailer by 5 to 6 times larger than Walmart. Everybody is shopping online. And we watched Walmart change retail, 40, 50 years ago, and there was a lot of talk about it driving out the mom and pop shops. And now we've watched Amazon completely take them over, and it has just accelerated. But in order for Amazon to get you your products the next day, 2 days, or really what their goal is, same day, is the current modern day warehouses that we were built even 5 years ago don't even come close to being able to handle those facilities. We recently built a 330,000 square foot facility that's 100% automated. I say to a certain extent, that's open for 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes in the day. But they see millions of dollars of product go through there. And in order to accommodate that automation and that robotic, the older, smaller warehouses, the lower clear heights, just don't accommodate those needs. And it's not that people are moving out of those warehouses. They're all full. There's businesses that are full with those products too. And it's not just Amazon spearheading that. It is, you see large groceries that don't even have retail fronts in our communities coming into Florida for billions of dollars of expansion. And Broward County is right there with bullseye for that. And they want to deliver your groceries the same day. They want to deliver your meals the same day. They don't ever want you to walk in a retail storefront. And I think that's what we're going to start seeing, that e-commerce move. Now, of course, the retailers have to step up their game because they don't need to go out. They're not going to want to go out of business either. But as it relates for Broward County, obviously we're on the, right there we're second largest in the state. The state is thriving. We're the focus point for a lot of that. And it's how do we fit that into our community? Where do you put a 5 million square foot building, and how do you accommodate that? And so what we've seen is being more creative with those designs, going multi-story, repurposing old buildings and figuring out how to utilize the same amount of square footage, get trucks on the roof, get vans on the roof, take advantage of these high clear heights, build buildings taller and taller and taller from an ability for automation. And so I think we're going to continue to see that, all the industrial developers and the industrial, and more importantly, investors that are funding these projects are very bullish on Florida. And most importantly, they're very bullish on South Florida. So I think I really see, what we continue to see. Multifamily is not going away. I think we've heard that a lot. And I don't think e-commerce or industrial is really going to go away either.
Thank you, Brian.
I'll take it. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for my Broward Miami leaders being here. I'm going to take it a step further and say what really highlights Broward County. It's our amazing South Florida lifestyle. We tell our realtors every day, it's not just selling real estate, it's selling a lifestyle. And that is truly honest for all businesses operating in South Florida. You're taking advantage of this lifestyle. We are the #1 destination for domestic migrating buyers in the entire country. We are the #1 destination for international buyers. Florida is the recipient of the most amount of permanent change of address forms in the entire country last year because of the migration. It's an amazing thing to be a part of, and all of this has been magnified during the pandemic. So it's about taking advantage of what we have. Demand is not going away. Buyers are not going away. Trends are not going away. So we're in a really great spot and a position as long as we handle growth, buildings, and such not. But again, you all, every business owner in this room takes advantage of the quality of life, the fact that all eyes are on South Florida.
Well, good morning, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today representing Broward County's Port Everglades, your port here in South Florida. No, and it's a very interesting question because picking up on some of Brian's comments about the warehousing, for example, we have a new warehouse on the port, 240,000 square feet that Center Point is currently a developer and operator of, and that's full. That was full pretty soon after it was built. We have CGIS, who's building a 200,000 square foot warehouse just outside the port. And there's a number of other warehouses going in because the demand is there. There was an article in the South Florida Business Journal in May that talked about the reduced availability of warehouse space in Broward County. And in Broward County, there's actually probably more warehouse space in Miramar down in the southern part of the county than there is in the greater Fort Lauderdale area. And that ties back to the availability of land, because that land and investing, even if you can go vertical with a warehouse, it's still very expensive for that ground footprint. And we're working with the Florida East Coast Railway on a potential cold storage warehouse just outside the port. But that's only a piece of the logistics chain. So we at the port, where has our focus been on? We've been investing. Our largest infrastructure project, $471 million for adding more berths, adding more cranes. Actually, we just opened a new berth last week. And that's where we've been focusing our time, because we didn't shut down during the pandemic. Did crews go away? Sure. We went from 3.8 million passengers passing through to 0 for 18 months. And the impact was on the port, but it really was on the surrounding community. It's Visit Lauderdale. All of those, the 3.8 million passengers, over half of them come and stay in a hotel. So those were people that weren't using our hotels. And when we release our economic impact numbers here tomorrow, actually, we're going to release our impact numbers for 2021. You'll see a significant reduction, but that's on the hospitality side. So it's less people going through Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport. It's less people staying in hotels, using those amenities that Jenny mentioned that are in the downtown area. But we're coming back. We've had this year 1.3 million passengers pass through since last October, and that's compared to what we would see 2.6 million. But those are just some of the things that we're doing as a port. But really, it's a broader county initiative, and I think we're going to talk about some of the other things to focus on transportation and some of the environmental initiatives. So that's sort of my opening salvo.
That's a great opening salvo. And we are going to dig more into the investments being made at the port in a little bit. But I think it's important first, before we dive really looking at the current landscape and what you all are doing on that side, is to identify, we talk a lot about the growth and we talk about everything happening in Broward County, and there's a lot of wonderful things, but what do you all see as the most pressing challenges towards this growth at the moment? I guess we'll go ahead, and Brian, you have the mic in your hands, so let's start with you.
I mean, as it relates to commercial construction, the most pressing challenge is cost. I mean, for 2 years ago, it was material procurement. Can we get the materials to build? And then all of a sudden, all right, we can get materials. We just got to plan a little bit better. And at the same time, material costs started to escalate. Land costs started to escalate. Over these last 2 years, depending on what segment of construction you're on, from ground up, how much steel, how much concrete you're using, but we've seen costs accelerate from 25 to in excess of 50% of hard cost. And we've seen land cost double and triple. And so how do you combat with these rising costs? I mean, the reality is developers aren't saying, okay, we'll lose money on this job. What has been beneficial is interest rates were great, and cap rates have really been suppressed in this market. For long as you could see the lowest cap rates across this country, New York, LA, I mean, every single time. But our cap rates here in South Florida and Broward County are now rivaling the cap rates, or even lower than some of the cap rates in some of those areas. And so that has really, really helped the ability to not just increase rents, but now those cap rates are starting to go up. Interest rates are starting to go up. So the only thing allowing development to continue to happen right now in Broward County is increased rents. And how much more can the increased rents can we sustain? It's not just the increased rent of apartments. It's not the increased rent of anything for multifamily. But if the warehouse costs more, if the office costs more, those costs are being passed out. And I mean, obviously it's not sustainable. It's gonna have to flatten out. It's gonna have to correct itself. And over this economic cycle, we have seen different waves of different products go up and down. I mean, last year it was roofing and steel just skyrocketed like you wouldn't believe. It was really steel in early 2021 that really skyrocketed. This first quarter of 2022, you saw increases of just raw concrete, cement, that you see built in every single building around go up in the neighborhood of 20 to 40%, depending on what market you're in and what you're looking to purchase. And those aren't things you can negotiate. It is just a fact of what we have to deal with. And so it's not just gloom and doom, right? I mean, these are good challenges because the only reason we have cost increases is because we have good demand. And so we're an emerging community, and it's a lot better than the alternative of dealing with a community that's not emerging. And so we're just having to become more creative on how we deal with this. And who's ever the most creative is going to end up being the winner. And material costs are eventually going to stabilize. But, for the near future, we can't just keep passing on rates because that's not sustainable for our community. So I think there is a big initiative to figure out how to flatline the development cost so we can maintain the rents that we currently have.
Daniel?
A little bit to add to that, when we talk about where we see growth and what our desire is, there's the old adage, if you build it, they will come. What we really think about for Broward County is we've got to build it because they are coming. And in fact, they're already here. So we can't rest on what if. We've got, again, the highest demand. Every day, our realtors, and I'm sure all of you are asked about predictions, what's going to happen. You all are super smart in this room, demand is continuing. Even during the pandemic, and it's great to hear the port numbers, while things subsided, last year in the pandemic time, when flights were grounded, when borders were closed, international buyers still spent $5.1 billion on South Florida property. Just South Florida alone, $54 billion nationally. So the demand is here. And as he said, we're running out of space at some point. We can't go east, we can't go south. We're limited to our west. So what is it all about now? It's about redevelopment. Redevelopment's key, taking some of these larger parcels and breaking them down. Jenny hinted to the smaller footprints. When the pandemic started, we all know somebody who was stuck in I call the cold weather COVID states, the Chicagos, the New Yorks, right? They were in these tiny little condos or apartments. And what were we? We still had a hard time down here, but we had land, we had nice weather. So they came in carloads down to South Florida and they wanted space. Essentially, they wanted freedom, right? They wanted land, and that's what was selling during the pandemic. I want a pool, I want a backyard. Now it's just get any piece of South Florida real estate, get that foothold in for investment. So we're gonna see a lot of a migration between these industrial units going now to multi-use, malls and different big centers getting changed into smaller footprints so more people can have a piece of South Florida. That's gonna be the challenge of all of our community leaders and business leaders, as well as developers. So I laughed at Lori McQuestion, one of my peers here. It's a funny phrase, and I couldn't think of anything better. I said, it's a great place to be, and I'm from the South. They always say you want to be the prize pig at the state fair. We are the prize pig at the state fair. We're the thing everybody wants, so it's a Southern little reference. I hope you all get it, but it's a great place for us to be in.
Thank you. So, when you think about the challenges, we've already talked, the previous planable talked about, and Juliet in her opening remarks talked about workforce training, workforce housing, because at the port, our cargo activities at the port support over 7,000 jobs in the community, not at the port. People sometimes get confused when they see how many jobs are at the port. They say, well, where are we? We don't see that many people, but it supports the entire community. So that's a big challenge, but I leave it to others to figure that one out. But transportation, I think, is a key. One of the benefits, one of the attractions, I think, of Broward County, sitting in the middle of the Tri-County area, is our accessibility from the north and from the south. And at Port Everglades, that's one of the things that we really market, is our connectivity to the highways, our location. Literally a cruise passenger can come in and fly into the airport, and although we prefer they stay in a hotel the night before, they can go right to their ship and literally be on their ship within an hour of the plane landing. So it's those things, but to have that transportation connectivity, you need to invest. Reference was made to the infrastructure legislation, and there's billions of dollars, and we at the port have applied for a couple of those grant opportunities, and hopefully we'll be successful. You don't know the progress, but you don't wait. You know, those are backups to get funding, to defray the local costs. But our projects are moving forward independent of that. But probably in the bigger picture, it's really that penny surtax that was mentioned, that was authorized in 2018, because that has generated over $1 billion worth of funds right now, and that's being invested today. It's being invested in at the cities, at the city level, in city projects. It's being invested in transit. It's being invested in improvement of the highways. You know, I'm sure many people remember the day that no matter what direction you went in the county, you stopped at every traffic light. And the county invested a lot of money in, you know, sequencing. So now you can, I did it the other day. Boy, actually I went from the south end of University all up to 595 without hitting the light. Everybody else was held up, but that's on the other direction. But to me, that's, you know, to accommodate this growth, we need to have those transportation networks, whether those are highways, whether that's the, you know, the commuter rail that Juliet mentioned, or whether it's just making better use, because there is no more space. You know, you can add express lanes like we're doing on 95 and on 595, but still, ultimately, we have to look more towards transit and the opportunity to use transit to get people to and from the workplace.
Absolutely. Danielle, I want to come back to you. So we, of course, have kind of spoken ad nauseum now about this historic surge that Broward's seeing in general. But in relation to residential real estate, we know that the demand has obviously made prices continue to appreciate. From your perspective, how can this growth remain sustainable? And how has demand changed in regard to what people are looking for?
Okay, so I kind of reference what people are looking for. It's any bit of South Florida real estate now, so I won't go too in depth with that. You all know, and again, we've all heard it, record historical sale numbers between Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach. I always love us being in Broward because we're this wonderful balance between the busyness of Miami-Dade and a little more laid back Palm Beach. So we're in this wonderful spot. So many more eyes are looking to Broward County. Mayor of Broward County, Michael Udine, was in the Dubai a couple months ago promoting Broward County to the world. I know Bob Swindell is very involved. In the past, it used to be Miami. When you would go travel and you would talk to somebody, they'd say, "Where are you from?" What would you say? Miami, right? Now you can say Fort Lauderdale, and people know where that is. So we are really having this growth of visibility. That's a great thing for us. With regard to pricing, Miami, Broward, Palm Beach, historic sales the last year. We do feel that the price appreciation is going to slow down, obviously interest rates. We've got a little thing like hurricane season. Those of us who've lived here for a long time, we don't get too worried about it, but there's a lot of people who are new. Your first year seeing a hurricane, it scares the heck out of you, right? So we're going to watch that, and they're, as always, predicting a record hurricane season. So we'll see. But we've got amazing opportunity here. Now, when we talk about affordability, for those of us, again, who've been here a long time, prices have risen, of course. But remember, in terms of national and international comparisons, nationally, our price per square foot is still much lower than places like New York City, Chicago, multiple cities in California, and forget it internationally, London, Paris, Hong Kong. The price per square foot is almost triple what we have down here. So the investment opportunities will always be great for domestic and international buyers. Our job is going to be growth out, and again, I go back to that smaller foothold for what we can develop, and then we'll see how the economy plays out. Different factors that hope keep things a little more moderate as we move forward. But I think this is the Fort Lauderdale of tomorrow. It's not going to change too much.
If either of you wanted to speak on it, no? Okay. Brian, I'm going to come to you. Considering the continuous growth happening in Broward County, how are considerations around constructing new projects changing as a result of shifting demands and the need for smart development to accommodate this growth?
You know, I think it goes back to who's ever the most creative is going to be the most successful. And it depends what market you're looking at. Everyone wants to be that shiny new star that's out there, because if you're that shiny new building, you're going to be able to get the most, the most attention and drive the highest rents. And I think that shiny star, depending on what market you're in, I mean, office, we haven't seen a lot of office development over the last 2 years, but it's going to come back, and people are going to start being more creative, collaboration areas, training centers in a multi-tenant building that they can all share, because, people still haven't figured out the office market. How much are we going to work from home and how much are we not, and every company has a different vision on how they want to handle that. And that vision will change tomorrow and the next day as it has changed in all the previous days. So, I think there's a lot of challenges with office still as it relates to that. Industrial is going to continue to be strong. Last mile distribution is the most critical piece that has to be figured out for us to get same day deliveries. And so, all these large companies are going to continue to invest in dense urban areas like Broward County to figure out and how to solve last mile distribution. And multifamily, I think it really comes back to it's whatever the shiny new place is. People love amenities, and people, traffic, like you mentioned, not hitting traffic lights and maybe driving the opposite way. People hate traffic. How do you get to live and work in the same place? And so I just think it's kind of simple, and it's going to continue to go that direction.
Absolutely. And then Glenn, I promised I was going to get back to the investment in the port, and there's been so much I need to read it off my paper. Okay, in 2021, the port accelerated their capital program, completed a $120 million parking garage, and a $471 million project that is the largest ever infrastructure project undertaken by the port. How will these investments not only help to accommodate future growth for the port, but also the county? And how can these improvements be used as models for smart infrastructure investment in the future?
Thanks, Matt. And a good question, because when you look at the investments we've done in the port, they haven't been done in a void, in a vacuum. Our process, we actually go through a master vision plan process every 3 or 4 years, and we involve the entire port community, as we call it, and we involve the business community, and Bob Swindell and the Alliance and the Port Everglades Association and the workshop. So we get that input. So when we make recommendations to the county commission, who is ultimately, our boss and controls the money that we spend on projects, because we're a self-supporting enterprise fund, it's based on that input of what the industry sees as the needs going forward. So that the parking garage that was mentioned, it's up next to the convention center, that was really done because in anticipation of the convention center expansion and the hotel needing to add long-term capacity. Now, if you go there to that parking garage now, we only have a couple ships there, but we have Disney coming online here in a couple years, and they will have 2 ships by 2025 that will be sailing. So that garage will be full, but it was designed to add 2 more floors if we need it somewhere down. Our turning notch project, that at full capacity will add 5,000 additional direct jobs to the jobs that are already there at the port. And why is it there? Because the demand is there. A port doesn't do any business other than pass things through, and we try to do it as efficiently as we can with our port users, because we're a landlord port. So we work with all of our tenants to modernize the equipment available. But it's having that impact on the community. That's the bottom line. And that's when we do our economic impact analysis. We're looking on the impact of the port on the community. It's not how much revenue we get. Despite what you pay at the pump, we get the same amount of money as that petroleum comes through the port. So, we don't get a percentage of it. So it's, but that's the money that we're using to invest and reinvest in the infrastructure in the port to make it an attractive location, because there's other ports on the East Coast that cargo that is really here to service the South Florida market as it continues to grow. We're a consumer economy. And having that infrastructure in place for the most efficient delivery means ultimately that last mile that was mentioned, it costs less. And that's when the businesses are making the decisions, not just to move through Port Everglades, but to put their headquarters in Broward County and to invest in those warehouses in Broward County, because that's going to be a challenge, as was already mentioned a couple times. Warehouse capacity is at a premium here, and there's not a lot of space to build. You can build up, and we're seeing more and more warehouses that are actually going vertical. But we had a tenant last week that we met with who was up in Pompano and needs to double their space and would like to be closer to the port, but they can't find that footprint that they need. not just for the warehouse, but for all the trucks that have to service it without impacting the local communities, because that's the last thing also that people want is trucks moving 24/7 a day down their local streets. So that's sort of, that's where we are right now.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I mean, the great work that the Port of Everglades have done, when I mentioned that our cap rates that we're paying, or that, you know, investors are expecting on the return are suppressed to the lowest as across this entire nation, it's directly attributable to this being a shining star. It's directly attributable to the great work the port has done. And so when all these institutions that are trading money on Wall Street, pensions funds that are trying to figure out where to put their money, where is it the safest place to put it? They're putting it in Broward County for the lowest amount of return, and it's become a hot spot. So they're all fighting over it. And so really, I mean, that port expansion that, you know, was done right there created warehouse space at a less cost per square foot. And because their investors are expecting less of a return. And so, I mean, I think that really goes to show the good work that the county has done and the returns that it has given to our local community.
And we're going to look towards the future in a second, but I had one more question for the group, whoever wants to take this one. When you kind of evaluate the current landscape, what do you feel are the most important areas of opportunity as it pertains to investment and development? And that can be in regard to real estate, infrastructure, and perhaps those that aren't getting the biggest light shown on them right now. Brian, Danielle, Glenn?
You know, I mean, I think one of the biggest areas of opportunity, and unfortunately we don't participate there, but it's roads. I mean, if you look at even the FDOT's budget, it has ballooned, if I'm not mistaken, from 1 billion to 3 billion over recent years, and they're expecting even more infrastructure to be built. I mean, you look at 595 and the success of that, you look at the improvements on I-95, but there's a lot of FDOT roads that are in here, and they are right on the target for Tallahassee to spend their money. And so, I mean, I think, you know, from an investment standpoint or really just a workforce standpoint to construct is infrastructure is with the influx that we have coming down to our county is going to be huge.
Yeah, just one thing, and it really hasn't come up, and it may not fit exactly, is, you know, with all this growth comes traffic. Roads are part of the solution. Transit has to be part of the solution, but we can't lose sight of the resiliency and sustainability, which was mentioned. And, you know, that's one of the other things that we're working on at the port. We're working with Florida Power and Light actually on investing and installing the infrastructure for when those cruise ships do come in, and we have the capacity to hold eight cruise ships a day, that they can plug into the local electric grid and reduce those emissions of the ships when they're in port. So it's not just looking at, you know, the road, is what are we doing to manage the overall environmental impacts of what we do, and then doing it in a way that, you know, the word hurricane was mentioned, you know, when you go through one, then you're hopefully one and done, but never, that it's being done in a way that it's done smart, and that's ultimately. So I just wanted to add that piece as well.
I'm going to add a kind of a little outlier. Totally related to transportation. While infrastructure is important and getting better roads, as we're going to continue to be an international city with Bob Swindell and then bringing everybody in, we can't lose sight of the fact that we're one of the only international cities that has such little emphasis on cycling and walking to and from. And that's something that our developers and our communities are working on, but we've got to get better at. You look at any other major city in the world, they've got cycling, you know, they have the bikes. Miami's doing well, Broward's well, but we've got to get better. That's going to help us tackle this transportation when people start to take their bikes a little more or walk. Yes, it's hot, but it gets done in other places. So that's going to be on our docket as well.
Absolutely. And then another question for the group, again, as we look more towards the future, and Glenn kind of touched upon it, but Brian, you have the mic in your hand. So how do you feel we are building a more resilient and sustainable future for Broward County?
I mean, there's no doubt that the buildings built today are a lot more energy efficient than we've ever seen before. This building we're sitting in here today, we built, and it couldn't even spell LED at the time. If we built this thing today, every light fixture in here would be LED. And almost every single building that we do build The light fixtures are 100% LED, and developers want it. And honestly, the institutions that are investing in these projects want it as well, because they want to be able to promote, the carbon footprint that they're helping to reduce throughout. And it's not just with lights. It is, through and throughout of recycled materials. It is going back into how efficient the HVAC units are today versus even 5 years ago. The energy code throughout the state of Florida, when you look at the watts per square foot, has plummeted tremendously. That is allowed by code. And so it's being integrated currently, and it is continuing to be accelerated, and we don't even know it. When you're talking about LED lights, you're talking about 5% of the power that it used to use. And that's going across, just from a lighting perspective, across an entire building. They're using areas to reduce daylight sensors, to use natural light. It is being produced everywhere in our footprint. And if you're not doing it, you're not even going to be in the picture of conversation of building. And so when you look at even recycling and materials, when we demolish a building, which is going to happen more and more, as we're landlocked, there's very little bit of that material that actually goes to what we call C&D waste. Every bit of the metal is recycled. Concrete goes back into other aggregate pits. They find a way to use every single bit of that material, because the most expensive thing you can do to demolish a building is send it to the dump. And so they're just repurposing every bit of that material. And so I honestly, the one thing I look at the future is I don't think we really understand or grasp how much we've done as a society in the past 5 to 10 years to reduce our carbon footprint, and we probably don't even know it. And so, and we're continuing to trend that way. And so I think from a standpoint, every once in a while, let's just congratulate maybe where we have done a lot, and every single trend is continuing to move that way because society wants it.
Absolutely. Danielle?
So I'll say this, it always, you hear it takes a village. For my thoughts is it takes a village to create a community. And we've got the best visionaries, the best leaders, and I think in the entire nation here in Broward County. And they've all been working on this. So many of you in this room have been doing that over the years. It's building better buildings, more sustainable buildings. We have our challenges, sea level rising. We have our challenges with density, with our roads. FP&L, I know Juliet, they're working on that. FP&L, better solutions. We have our sewage issue. We're working on better solutions. But with the amount of leaders that we have, I'm very confident this will be done. One of the things I always say is we always have to make sure we involve our rising leaders, our young professionals in these discussions. They are so key to the future and the walkability of what's happening. And so when we talk about future, it's to me very bright. While we have challenges, we've got, again, so many eyes looking at us. We've got the top destination. We've got more festivals and events in South Florida than almost anywhere in the world. We've got Tortuga. We've got the water, the air shows, the music festivals. What just came to town? Formula One, 240,000 people. It's a 10-year contract. We have Major League Soccer. Well, forget that. We have David Beckham. That's all. He's in town. So y'all, it's a great place to be. We're a great position to be in South Florida. And these are the people to make it done. And I think we've got, again, the best visionaries, best leaders working on our current and future growth.
No, and I think Danielle hit the main thing is that from my perspective, it's no. The future will bring plenty of opportunities. And, we have cargo lines today that are saying, boy, once you open those new berths, now we have more people that want the berths than we have berths. And we have new cranes coming on. And I see Alan Dodd here, the Director of Public Works. In his previous life as Colonel Alan Dodd with the Corps of Engineers, we're getting closer to our deepening project. And almost half of the money in that project actually is going to environmental mitigation or minimization. So it's focusing on the environment that we live in and being proactive and taking advantage of all of those resources, because I fully agree. Broward County is full of visionaries, and whether we see it through the workshop, through the Alliance, through all the other groups that are out there at the county level, at the local level. It's taking advantage of that power and focusing that power to solve the problems, not of today, but of 5 and 10 years from now, and having a process that we can be visionary on behalf of the entire county and move forward as one. So that's my input on that one.
And I think that's a wonderful place for us to end. I do want to thank this great panel up here. We really appreciated your insights. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all, and I'll pass it back to Abby. But first, we're going to take a quick picture.
Well, that was a wonderful discussion. Let's give them another round of applause. And so we're just coming to the end of our program today. So I would like to introduce our closing keynote, coming off a tremendous season, making it to the second round of the playoffs and winning the President's Trophy because of the best team of the season. I'm honored to invite Matthew Caldwell, the president of the Florida Panthers, to the stage as our closing keynote.
Well, thank you for having me. I want to apologize up front. I only showed up about halfway through the meeting. I was here. I was just in the parking lot on the phone. I thought when we were trying to turn around this franchise, we were busy. But like now that we're winning, everybody calls. Yeah, it's amazing, how popular we've become. So it still stings that we lost in the second round. But being in front of all you, this is my first. I just came out of therapy for the last 2 weeks. It's literally my first public conversation since the loss. But we thought we were going to go all the way, but we made great strides, and we're very proud of the team. So, but long before we became this winning hockey team, if you know anything about us, if you know anything about our owner, we care a lot about the community. Right, community is everything to us. Some people would argue we focus too much on the community than winning hockey games in the beginning, but we felt a sports and entertainment platform, we have this unbelievable honor to own a team and give back. So we moved our families here. A bunch of us are from New York. A number of us are from the military. And we felt this would be an opportunity to give back and try to help Broward County as much as we can. So, we do a lot for veterans. We do a lot for youth education, conservation of the panther. So these were things that were just kind of in our culture. George Floyd happened, which we all opened our eyes, rocked us, shocked us a couple of years ago, shocked the world, and we stepped back as a franchise, the NHL as a whole, and said we got to do something. This ain't right. The hockey, the NHL is predominantly white sport, very wealthy. And we said, we have to reach out, get out to people of all different backgrounds and do more to give people access to this game. And this can't be something that you do like a one-off. You can't just go and make a hire or do one initiative or attend an event. You really have to sit back and make a concerted effort. So at least I just wanted to share a couple of things what we do, with D&I, and then I'll get to some real estate. But we step back. Thomas Eugene, I believe he's here. Thomas is, please stand up, Thomas. Say hello. Yeah. Thomas, I was in the playoff bubble, they called it, with the team, and we came back. Thomas was in our group sales department and came to me and gave me an unbelievable presentation about what the Panthers could be doing more, and whether it was recruiting, whether it was giving back, whether it was even just giving people access to the game. So we created our own D&I department. It became an arm of our human resources. Thomas leads that, and we've made this a major focus to everything that we do. As part of that, we hired a new general manager to try to take the hockey team to a next level. He came in, we did an exhaustive search, for his staff, and we were very proud to hire the first Black assistant general manager in the National Hockey League. So Brett Peterson is his name. So wonderful guy. He was just confidentially interviewed for a GM role for another team, but we're going to hold on to him. So, but if he needs to move on to greener pastures, we'll support him. But throughout all that, throughout this whole process, and kind of looking into what we can be doing more for the community, we kept hearing, well, hockey's so expensive. If you know anything about the sport, the equipment, travel, going to games, and folks of lower economic backgrounds could not get access to the game. So these are all facts, but also excuses to why it's predominantly white sport. So our owner, if you know anything about him, stepped forward and said, we got to do something. We have to break down these walls. So he came up with an idea. The Boys and Girls Club, I don't know if anyone's here from the Boys and Girls Club, wonderful organization in Broward County. By the way, I'm seeing a lot of new faces. I'm like, so many folks are moving down here and getting into the county, which is wonderful. But the Boys and Girls Club, we sat down with them and we committed to 10 young kids between the ages of 5 and 10 years old. Vinny, our franchise, are going to stand behind them. They have to be dedicated. They have to work hard, but we will support them for the rest of their, young adolescent life in hockey. Right. So it's a indefinite support that we will pay for your equipment. We'll support your travel programs. If you wind up playing in high school or juniors or college, we will support you, kind of a indefinite scholarship. So we did that. Boys and Girls Club did a whole vetting process of who was wanted to sign up for this challenge, and we're very proud. We're 2 years into the program now. We have 10 young kids that we're putting through youth hockey, and with all that, we while that was going on, we committed to, and this kind of moves into the real estate piece to all this, which is the War Memorial. I'm sure many of you have heard about this massive real estate development project, but our team is committed to privately funding a $65 million facility. If you know Holiday Park, kind of right in the center of it, the old War Memorial, which is dedication to veterans, which is near and dear to our heart. We're going to refurbish, renovate the facility. We're actually going to put a 4,000 capacity music venue right there in the auditorium. Some of you may have graduated. Anyone graduate from the War Memorial? I usually hear this. No? Okay. We must really have a pretty diverse crowd who maybe came from outside Broward County, but during construction, every time I walk around, I run into a contractor or someone on the site, and I graduated here in 1988. So anyway, we're going to refurbish the auditorium, bring 4,000 capacity music shows. We're partnering with Live Nation. I'm sure you're familiar with Live Nation. We work with them out at the arena. And then behind the War Memorial, we're putting in 2 sheets of ice. So we're bringing hockey right downtown. Hopefully those 10 young kids that we're sponsoring a lot of them are in the Sistrunk area, downtown Fort Lauderdale. So they'll have access to ice nearby, and we're going to keep growing the game. And so we'll have those 2 sheets of ice. We have our 3 sheets of ice that we own and operate in Coral Springs. So we'll continue to run that facility. And then we have our arena in Sunrise. So we're all over Broward County. We have 3 venues from Fort Lauderdale to Sunrise to Coral Springs. Obviously, we wouldn't be investing all this money if we didn't believe in the county. So we do come from investment and finance backgrounds first. So we believe in the county. We all live here. We love it. I live in Rio Vista, and I was very honored you asked me to come out here and speak. And I know I'm the last speaker, so I'll stop you for, let you go on to lunch and the rest of your day. And I appreciate you giving me the honor to speak to you. Thank you. Oh, cool.
Thank you again, Matt. Let's give him another round of applause. got a wonderful sporting community here in South Florida. I grew up in the Philadelphia area, so not far away from New York. If anyone knows Philly, sports you live and die for. But it's really a part of such a wonderful part of the economy that I don't think is always top of mind. So it's wonderful to hear all the activities that you have going, and thank you again. And I want to just thank all of our moderators, our panelists, our keynotes today. Thank you everyone for attending. I want to take another moment to thank our sponsors, our gold sponsors, Hypower and Pediatric Associates, and then our honored sponsors, Broward Workshop, the City of Fort Lauderdale, the Riverside Hotel, and the Broward and Miami Association of Realtors. I thank you all for coming to this event. 5 years is really such a milestone for us to achieve, and it is wonderful to have such wonderful community leaders in this room to celebrate with. So on your way out, we will have the editions of Invest Greater Fort Lauderdale. Please take one on your way out. We will be starting the 6th edition in approximately 5 months or something like that. So we're still in touch, don't worry. We still have our newsletters. We're still reporting on Broward County. We're not going away. In the meantime, if you have any comments or would like to be in touch, don't forget to register to read the reports. That the QR code will take you there to register complimentary to read our whole entire library. Of course, the 5th edition will be available starting today. Our newsletters come out on a weekly basis, so you can sign up for those. And when we are back reporting on the next edition, I hope that we are able to meet you, to interview you and get your thoughts on how the county has continued to develop. So until then, stay in touch, keep well, and thank you again for coming today. Thank you.